Time to get back in the action here. Alright, well, welcome back. In today's video, we're actually going to do a manual swap. We're going to take an automatic car and convert it to a manual transmission because, well, that's a heck of a lot more fun to drive now, isn't it? So this car here, from what I can tell, is something like an 86 Chevette, and this is getting transplanted into my 87 Pontiac Acadian. Virtually identical car. The only difference is Marcy, the Pontiac Acadian, has an automatic transmission, and this has a 4-speed manual. So we're going to start by taking off the console cover and removing the shifter, and then everything happens underneath the car from there. Okay, so now if you look underneath the shift boot, they've actually got a jam nut. So you back that jam nut loose, and then you can thread off the shifter handle. Right on. So that's all good to go. What we're looking at right now is the transmission mount itself. And then, looking ourselves toward the rear of the car, let's see here, there we go. We've got the drive shaft. So we do have to undo the drive shaft and remove that. All we have to do in order to remove this drive shaft is undo these clamps on it there. Ha. I had a feeling I blew the mount to pieces, and it's pretty apparent that that's exactly what had happened there. So alright, well, it took me a whole lot more fighting than I'm wanting to admit, but I got that last bell housing bolt out. Next step, I got to remove the drive shaft. So in order to take those drive shaft retainers out, you usually have to lift the rear end up so you can spin the drive shaft and get to both sides. So I'm just going to put a safety stand under one side of the axle to get the tire up so it can freewheel, and I should be able to take those off pretty easy. Finish removing the trans mount now. I do have my floor jack under this just to keep a bit of tension upward on it. Alright, so back in we go. Yesterday we were able to successfully remove the transmission in a short period of time, which was a good achievement in my opinion. We've also got the drive shaft out, can you see there? Okay, so we've got that off, and the clutch switch comes out of the mount also, and now we've got those pedals pretty well free. The exception here is the clutch cable just is on this hook, so it actually just popped off easily there. So that's now coming out and getting removed. Now we're back under the driver's side firewall area. This clutch cable goes under the retaining clamp right next to the strut tower. Usually does a bit of a curvature and then follows the frame rail down underneath to the transmission, where it then connects to the clutch fork just through that keyway. So it's very easy to undo that from under the car. It's just the knuckle on the end that you pull through, and that comes out. Now that we've got the clutch cable disconnected from the pedal, it will also come out. And there's everything that, and there's everything that we need to retain for the clutch cable. So we're going to set that aside with the rest of our stuff and save that for later. Okay, so let's go through a little bit of an explanation here as to what the neutral safety switch actually does, this clutch switch. So in order to be able to turn the motor over and start it, you have to depress the clutch. That's what's closing this circuit up. So between a manual and an automatic car, there's a little bit of a difference. This is done from a switch that's located on the pedal assembly itself. When you push the clutch down all the way, it activates that switch. Now, on the automatic cars, the console in the center of the car is actually where that happens. Let's go take a look at an automatic car so you can hopefully have a better understanding of what I'm trying to convey. Welcome to my 86 86 Chevette. This is an automatic. Now, if we look at the center console where the shifter is actually located, we see yellow and purple wires going into a harness attached to the switch. So your neutral safety switch in the automatic car is built into the center console. So essentially what we need to do on the automatic car when we're ready to swap it is tap into this harness, and if you follow the routing path of this harness, it goes up behind the passenger side near the glove box area, comes back up nearly up under the top end of the dash into this big harness and underneath where the pedal assembly is, which is a benefit. We can basically tap into this harness wherever we see fit at this point in time. So we're now looking at the driver's side about midway down the manual 4-speed transmission, and we've got a 2-pin connector there, which happens to be the reverse light switch. So back to the manual car, they have a harness, or they have a connector that comes out of the bulkhead using the blue and the green wire, goes down the wire loom and drops in behind the engine block and then leads toward that transmission. So I pulled the inside of the bulkhead down underneath into the footwell where I can reach it. The purple wire from the clutch switch, from the neutral safety switch, ties into this bulkhead. Now looking at the layout on this bulkhead, they're actually pinned so they're easier to follow. Where my pinky is located, you've got numbers starting 1, 2, 3, you've got 7, 6, 5, and 4, and then A through, looks like A through F. I'm having a hard time seeing everything. Ultimately, that blue wire was in pin number 4E, or the purple wire. And using a flat blade screwdriver, I was able to unlock the pin holding it in place and pulled it right out of the harness. So now I can just reinstall this in the Pontiac in the same orientation, or matching it up with a new set of pins that will coincide with what I need. But looks like that little retainer there is what I just had to bend out of the way. So reinstalling it, I'll bend that pin out first with my knife, something small just to get it in place, and should be good to go. All right, so I did a little bit more tracing. Got me to a pretty good spot. So on top of the column, I think it's part of the ignition switch harness. There's a blue and a black connector that are paired side by side and plugged in. I'm trying to remember how they're plugged in now. They kind of fit together in a way, but it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. So pin number I think this is pin A. Anyway, it's pin A. It's on the top end of this connector. That's where this yellow wire from the other end of the clutch switch ties to. I'm going to take it right out of here because it might be just as easy to pin that other connector to match, and then I don't have to have any splices at all, which to me is even a better option. Look how easy that comes out. That should be a thing. Alrighty, so back under the hood here, this is the driver's side firewall. I've disassembled the bulkhead connector a little further. I pulled out the plastic retainer. What I'm after is this particular blue and green wire. So these are for the reverse lights. This is going to be a little trickier now because they've got them filled with a sealant of some kind that is certainly going to make things interesting and sticky. Let's see. I'm going to play with that for a minute. Well, the trans has been pulled out of what I've deemed the red dragon over there in the back corner, and I have removed basically all the bits and pieces that I'm going to need. So I've got the harness for the reverse light, I have the clutch switch wiring harness, which is the neutral safety switch. I've got the column that's got the key release trigger there as well. Getting into the car now. I have 3 pedals. So the pedal assembly's installed. I've got the clutch cable in there, just tucked up out of the way, and I've removed the console. Now I've got to rework some of the wiring, so then the neutral safety switch will be relocated from the console where it currently is, and it's going to get tied into the clutch switch. And then I've got the reverse lights that have to go from the console, actually into the bulkhead, and then down under the hood, through this wire harness, and then they drop down to the transmission behind the firewall area there, plug into the side port. So this is just going to be a little bit of wiring tonight to hopefully get that squared up and out of the way. You can see I got some stuff painted up a little bit just to touch it up and clean it. So hopefully this swap's going to go pretty smooth.